The problem statement is Oracle RDS instance is running in a public subnet and is accessible over the public endpoint. This poses a security risk and hence move the RDS instance to the private subnet. The support team or DBA connects to this instance using SQL Developer running on their laptops, and the same connectivity should be there once you move into private subnet. No VPN or direct connectivity is available. Right, so this is a problem statement. So two things we need to be mindful about: that public subnet is used for your RDS instance, you want to move it to private subnet, and your DBA connect using SQL Developer which is running on his laptop, and that connectivity should be in place even after this move. And then okay, this is simple architecture just to drive my point. Database is in public subnet, your DBA or support team is able to connect to this database using DB client, which is SQL Developer in this case, and that is seen as a security risk, and we want to mitigate that. In order to mitigate the risk, we are moving RDS instance to private subnet and using SSH Tunneling. We are you connecting from SQL Developer, which is running on your laptop, to this RDS instance, and for that we are using EC2 instance for setting up that tunneling, and I'll show you how to do it when we reach to that point. Let me show you in management console how this instance looks like. So this is a database which was created, and I have already created it, and if you want to know how to create it, you definitely can watch my earlier videos, but I'm not going to go in deep into how to create RDS instance. We are assuming that our instance is already ready and that is running in public subnet. So, okay, and there are multiple ways of achieving this, like public to private move. One thing is you can take a snapshot of database and restore that, and while restoring, make sure that you are restoring it in private subnet. That is one way of doing it. Or you can create a new instance itself and make sure you migrate your data. So this is like a couple of ways of doing it, right? But the simplistic approach we are going to take, we are going to use multi-easy approach to do this migration, and there is no database backup in or restore involved. There is no new creation of database involved. So we are using multi-easy facility which AWS RDS is giving us, and how we can apply that particular knowledge and that particular feature for our help here. So that is what the intent of this video. So, and we're going to see each step, like how you are connecting using SQL Developer to your public endpoint, how you are going to move database to private subnet. After doing that, how you are enabling SSH tunneling between your laptop or between SQL Developer to RDS instance in private subnet, and how to connect after you have that SSH tunneling enabled. So all this we are going to see. So please stay tuned, and there is much more for you to learn about this particular tutorial. So please stay tuned and we'll watch it step by step. Right. So first thing first. So we have a database running in public subnet, as I said. So if I go into connectivity, I can see that public accessible is yes. So that tells us like public, or it's having a public endpoint. So this endpoint I'm going to copy, and you can see this in connectivity and security tab, right? Just copy this, right? And port is 1521, which is like Oracle default port. So I'm just using that, and I have SQL Developer running here. And if you want SQL Developer, you can download it from just Google download SQL Developer, and you should get actual link to download it, and it's a free software, so you do not need to pay for it. But only thing is you need to have Oracle account, and I created my Oracle account with my personal email ID, and then use that to download a SQL Developer. You can do that. You can download it on your Windows laptop if you are using one, or you can download it in Mac OS. So there are those options when you are downloading it, right? So I'm not showing you how to download. I'm sure you will figure it out, and if you need any help, please put that in comment and we can work on that. But for now, I'm assuming you have SQL Developer, and I will just create connectivity a source, a data source, right? So here test public endpoint. Okay, and then user is like, this is a master user. When you create RDS instance, you need to give like this credentials. So I'm just giving them. Then endpoint is what we copied, port is same, and then here it is testdb. That is like a database name, or you can even give service name as well. It should work because Oracle by default create that service name, which is same like SID or Oracle identifier, and you can find out that here. Okay, so let me go back and then test connectivity. Okay, yeah, it shows it success. I'm just connecting, and that's it. You can see that connectivity is in place, and I can just make sure that I'm connected, and that should be it. Any command you can just run here. I just want to show you this just to make sure that our connectivity is intact. Okay, testdb, we are connected, so this is good. So long as we are in public subnet, this connectivity will not have any issues and everything is working well. Okay, but now main task is we want to move it to private subnet. So there are a couple of things you need to understand about how RDS work and how public subnet or private subnet is decided in first place. So there is something called subnet group, right? So for you to, like, I just want to show you what is that subnet group and where we are specifying that. So in network connectivity, somewhere we should see subnet group which is attached to this particular instance. Let me find out where we have specified subnet group. Okay, it's not visible here, but it should be somewhere in connectivity. Yeah, subnet group, right? POC RDS subnet group. So I have created this subnet group before, so I just go there. Okay, so this is a subnet group. Let me just go to edit. So yeah, you can just see it, but I just want to show you how to edit that as well. So right, so here you can see that two AZs are selected, and you for sure have to select two AZs, right? So I selected UST to 1A, USS to 1B, and inside that I have taken two subnets, and those two subnets are both public subnets. Right, so that's the reason our database is running in public subnet, and you can verify it multiple ways. Like you can go into network interface, see what are the network interface attached for RDS instance, and how you can do that is go into network interface and see description RDS network interface. So you can just search for this, and then you will able to see only that interface, network interface. So this is optionally, we can just see that, so that becomes so much easy to just see one record there. So that is how you can check it. And other good thing you can use for VPC feature is resource map, and I found it incredibly helpful. So for sure you should check this out. When you are selecting VPC, you can see VPC resource map, and as you see, it's a new feature, right? So I found it very useful. So for example, I want to see what are the public subnets where internet gateway route is added to the route table. So you can see, okay, these many are public subnet and rest are private subnet, right? So that's how I distinguish between public and private quickly. We are working on moving it to private subnet. What essentially we will do, right? We will add we'll add private subnet into this in like subnet group, right? And then we'll remove public subnet, but we cannot remove public subnet which has network interface created inside that. So for example, if I go into this network interface, right, I know that only one network interface will be there, because like I don't have multi-AZ setup for this database. So it is just one interface created, and it is in US East 1A. So if I go here, I know US East 1A is used. So like there is a network interface in US East 1A, and that particular subnet is this. So if you go here and see subnet 62D, right? So 62D is being used. So I'll not able to remove 62D. Even if I remove it, it will not allow me to remove that because it's being used. So I'll remove this particular subnet, which is like 1B. So now I will go into this, and in 1B I'll choose another one, so which is like a private subnet. And I'm not just taking it as a private subnet. It is possible that it is a public subnet, but what we can do is we can go back to our resource map and just make sure that that is a private subnet. We are removing all the public subnets. If there are multiple AZs, you need to remove more than one subnet from there, right? But I am removing all the public subnets but one which is used currently. So our database is in public subnet, so it has a ENI attached to it, which is residing in your public subnet. So that you cannot remove. So you remove everything else, all the subnet you should remove, but that one where your database resides. And then one more, you can add private subnet in another AZ. In this case, I have added US1A or 1B, and I have added private subnet from that. So that's it. So you just save it. So now let me go back to the database, and I'll just go like this. Now you know, like, your public subnet is used in USS1 and you have added USS1B private subnet. So what happens is when you convert it to multi-AZ, now for sure it is not multi-AZ, that's the reason he's giving us option to do that. So convert it to multi-AZ, apply immediately. I want to convert it to multi-AZ. So what happens now is it creates a standby or secondary instance, and that instance will be in different AZ because that is a multi-AZ setup. So you have USS1A has your primary database, and now there is only another AZ is USS1B. So there we have added only private subnet. There is no public subnet. So when it creates a secondary database or standby database, it for sure will create in USS1B, and that will be in our private subnet. That's how our primary is in public subnet, secondary is in a private subnet now. So this takes time, so maybe 10 minutes or so. So what I'll do is I'll just stop the video and come back once it's available, and then multi-AZ conversion is done. So you have your primary in USS1A and secondary in USS1B. If you go into this database instance, you can see that it has public access still, and your multi-AZ setup, it should say yes. Multi-AZ is yes, and secondary zone is USS1B. Though this is just a confirmation, so you can just see that. And other thing you can do is just go to network interface and just see that there is one more IP address or ENI is attached to this. So let's do one thing, like you will do failover, right? So how we should do it is just reboot it, and make sure when you are rebooting the instance, choose that reboot with failover. If you do not do that, you do not click this, it will just restart your instance, and your primary still will be in USS1A and secondary in 1B. So you should make sure that you are rebooting this instance with reboot with failover clicked. Okay, let's confirm this. So now this is going to reboot database, and then it will change the role. Your USS1B instance will become primary, and the one in USS1 will be secondary. So that's how your primary is moved to your private subnet now. So let's wait for that transition to happen, and once that is done, we'll look further into this tutorial. Okay, so we can see that reboot is completed, database status is available, and database primary is in USS1B. And this takes time to reflect that it's in USS1B. If you are doing it and you still see it in USS1A or your previous subnet, don't worry, it will just a couple of minutes and you should be able to see this in right subnet. Okay, so USS1B will be reflected in after a few minutes of doing reboot. So just be patient when you are doing this one. Okay, so now our database primary is in USS1B, so secondary must be in USS1A. Our main purpose is solved, that our primary subnet is USS1B. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just modify this instance and say that we don't want multi-AZ now. So what happens is secondary will be dropped or removed. So whatever instance is running in US1A public subnet, that will be removed. So our instance will be moved to private subnet. That is what the intent of this exercise, right? So let's go ahead and you just change that multi-AZ deployment that I do not want to have standby database. That's it. And then let me see. Yeah, and not publicly accessible. Okay, so you can just remove this, and it gives you a warning when a DB instance is not publicly accessible. EC2 instances and device outside your VPC can't connect unless they use site-to-site VPN or AWS Direct Connect. And this was a prerequisite for this tutorial, that we don't have a site-to-site VPN and we don't have a Direct Connect. Still, how we can connect it. So I'll show you next once we make sure that our database is running in private subnet. Okay, so I removed public accessibility, apply the changes. So you can see that multi-AZ deployment was yes, we change it to no. Public accessibility was yes, we change it to no. So with this, just apply. Okay, so we can see the database status is available now, and we are in 1B, which is a private subnet. And if I go now into network interface and check, it should be only one. And if you check, it will be in private subnet. Okay, that's it. So we successfully moved database into private subnet. Depending on the database size, creating multi-AZ database definitely will take time, but at least I want you to be aware about this. And I myself used this particular feature recently for one of the assignments, and that's the reason I thought like I'll share this with all of you. So what I'll do is I'll just go to SQL Developer and just try to reconnect. Okay, so you can clearly see that there is a IO error. The network adapter could not establish the connection. So we know the reason, so there is no point in like troubleshooting this, but we know the reason. It doesn't have public endpoint. Okay, next is how to connect to this private subnet database instance from your laptop using SQL Developer. So for that we need to enable SSH Tunneling, right? So for doing that, you need one EC2 instance. You should have 1521 open from this EC2 instance to your RDS database instance. That connectivity should be in place, and then you should be able to SSH into this particular instance. And here you go into view, right, and click on SSH. So once you do that, you will see SSH host, new SSH host. So here just like you can say that DB client or whatever name you want to give, you can just give that name. Then local host should be IP address for your EC2 instance. Okay, so host will be EC2 public IP address. Then name you can give anything. Port should be 2022, which is the SSH port. Then EC2-user and use key file. Okay, then add a local port forwarding. So here you can just give the name of the database, test DB. Then host should be your RDS instance. So we are adding port forwarding. So using this SSH tunneling, we are able to connect to the RDS instance. So let's go back to the RDS, get the connectivity details, which is mainly endpoint and port. Port we know it's the default port for Oracle, which is 1521. So we created this test DB SSH host. So now let's add connection. So here I'm just giving TNS test DB private, and then here there is like a little different in how you want to connect. Here we'll say SSH. It already took port forward, which is test DB, which we created in the first step. Go to service name and then give test DB. Right, user will be admin. Whatever password you have given will connect, like creating it. So you just give that password and test it. Great. So you can see success. Let's try that we can connect it. Yeah, so you can see we are able to connect, and this is test DB private. So if now I just run the same command, This is just a test command we want to show, that showing like it is connecting to the database. Perfect. Hope you learned something new today. If so, please like this video, share, leave your comment so that I know this content is helping you. Don't forget to subscribe, and that's now. Okay, see you again with yet another exciting tutorial about AWS. Keep learning, keep sharing what you learn, and thanks for watching.